is Hidden Killers Live with Tony Bruschi, Stacy Cole, and Todd Michaels.
The yogurt shop murders have been solved at long last after 34 years. Authorities have named Robert Eugene Brashers as the lone perpetrator in the murders of Jennifer and Sarah Harbinson, Eliza Thomas, Amy Ayers. And thanks to advanced DNA testing, ballistic forensics, and genealogy-led investigation, they got their guy. He's dead, but they got their guy. The press conference acknowledged not just the solve, but the systematic failures, the lives derailed by false confessions, and the emotional toll on the surviving families. We're going to go through that press conference today. It was taking place just yesterday, as of our recording, on the 29th of September of 2025. And a lot of reflection, 34 years of not having an answer to this. And then suddenly, oh, wow, we got it. And the pieces of evidence, I mean, they've been sitting there for quite some time. It just really took someone to take certain pieces and test them certain ways and match them against certain things. And boom, you got your guy. I think that's what's an interesting piece of this whole story is just how much of that information is sitting out there in filing cabinets and evidence lockers from decades and decades ago, and how many people are still incarcerated or dead for crimes maybe they did not commit, where real evidence is sitting out there. That's something that I think this case is making a lot of people wonder about. Todd Michaels, Stacy Cole, all with us today to go through all this. What's your thoughts as now, shortly after this documentary drops, suddenly another case solved? Amazing, huh?
Amazing what science can do, isn't it? You know, it's the DNA. I see a lot of people disputing, well, that DNA is junk science and things like that. But it's interesting. Have you guys done any of the genetic analysis testing, 23andMe, Ancestry, any of that stuff?
I have.
You did? You really did?
Yeah. I did the kit a long time ago. Did you, Stacy?
I did 23andMe. And it's interesting because when you look at it and you parse through the results, things start making sense. Like, I contacted some relatives that I maybe knew existed, but it put me in touch with them. We started comparing notes. You can sit there and say it's junk science, but a lot of it is pretty spot on.
Well, what's junk science about it? What do you mean people are saying it's junk science?
There's a lot of commentary out there. The Reddits, let's just talk about Reddit for a second. A lot of people saying, oh, it's not accurate. You know, this is all just, again, junk science. And I just don't think it is.
That's
I think we've
junk
learned
thinking.
so much through DNA.
It's just people throwing stupid shit out of their mouths that mean nothing.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, it's like, I don't like it. It's junk.
And that's what it is. They probably found out that Dad, on his little business trips, had a little something going on, and now they've got a stepbrother.
Well, that's an interesting thing with the DNA technology is, and the IgG. I read some stat recently where even if you haven't taken these tests, there's like 90% of the population that's accounted for now in it. You don't need to have taken it. Like, your cousin takes it. Yes. And a couple others, and it all just kind of triangulates everything in different ways that can, pretty much lay out what genetics are. People don't like facts. People don't like learning something that that maybe grandma didn't want you to know, or your mom didn't want you to know, or whoever didn't want you to know. They can't hide from that shit anymore.
No, you can't. And what it did for me is it let me know where I was on the diabetic scale, and the diabetic scale is what I call it. Mm-hmm. But it showed me all of my relatives who do have diabetes, which is interesting, or at least a predisposition for it. And it made me start paying attention, and I changed my diet. I went and got myself checked and went, whoa, there's some stuff happening here. And I reeled it in. Had I not done that test, I probably would have maybe been 2 or 3 years down the road finding out some things. So for me, it was a wake-up call. because of how accurate it was. It told me, hey, girl, you're heading down a bad road. And it nailed it before my actual medical test really stepped in and did that. We didn't test for any of this stuff because I didn't fit the model yet. But I saw it in the 23andMe and thought, well, maybe I should look into this and get my A1C checked. Sure as shit, it was off the scale. Like, you need to do something. So it wasn't junk science to me.
I didn't know that that did that in the 23andMe, that it went into like biology of
there's
disease.
The health aspect.
The health aspect of it. Really? Mm-hmm. I didn't get that in mind. I did Ancestry. This was a couple years ago, so I have no idea what they were doing today. And it was more so you have X percentage from this portion of the world and X percentage from that portion of the world, and that's what it really lined out for me. And then it's always interesting when you start to see the genetic matches of this person is matching as X percent of like a cousin or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea who the person is.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away that thanks to 23andMe, Stacy's still with us because she changed and gave her the meat stick diet is what she went on. So I'm just
glad.
Yeah, me too. I'm thankful for
23andMe said eat meat sticks and hide knives around your house.
Which, by the way, Tony, just so you know, we figured out how many did you say you had? 5 or 6, and she's only got 4
I have
plus
5.
1. Yeah, 4 around the apartment and 1 in your purse.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Yes. But, if somebody decides to come in or, accost me in my bathroom, my bedroom, my living room, kitchen, or if I have my purse on me, you better look out. I'm ready to roll.
Am I wrong? But aren't the stats on that, like your odds of it getting used against you are pretty high if you have that readily available? Can I add another layer of paranoia to this?
Remember, I've been training. I train with plastic knives and
True.
battering sticks. So yeah, I've been training. So yes, the odds of it being used against you if you're not trained are pretty damn high. But I also know how to get at least 1 or 2 good cuts in and 1 giant stab. I mean, I've been practicing this
before they get you, so you can get
correct. So you can get away. The point is get 1 really good jab in so you can get away.
Oh, okay.
It's all about training, muscle memory. It does sound crazy, but being a single woman living on a ground floor apartment.
No,
that's what I need to do to feel safe.
Doesn't sound crazy at all, Stacy.
Thank you. I know. You guys are like making me think I sound nuts, but you know what? I don't have
6 knives in every different room. That sounds normal. Yeah.
Ladies, chime in. Tell me I'm not nuts. Come on, get in our comment section on YouTube and tell the boys how it is.
Get 3
if I'm
cuts
nuts,
in
I'll
and you're
go
fine.
seek help.
Yeah.
But you got to get 3 cuts in. I mean, I'm all about the training, and I think that's great that you are getting the training on it. Otherwise,
me too, honestly.
Otherwise, it's not a great idea to have 6 knives in different locations around the house.
I don't believe anybody should have a weapon if they haven't trained with it.
I mean,
because
Cheryl
the
Crow
weapon
says,
will do you no good if it's turned on you.
So did
But
you
if
have the
know
knife?
What you're doing?
Did you have the knives around the house before you had the training?
No.
Okay, well, good. There you go.
No, just like steak knives and things. But no, I would never.
She did.
We all have steak knives.
You are.
I don't, but that's okay.
Who doesn't have a steak knife? You guys.
Well, yes, but did you? Of course, we have steak knives, but did you have them strategically located around the house, not in the steak knife drawer?
No, I did not. They
okay,
are
there's
in
the
the
difference.
utensil drawer.
All right.
Okay.
So it's the only weapon I had. But I have
Okay.
firearms, and I shoot them on a regular basis to make sure that I'm competent.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if you're going to use any weapon, you should know how to use it.
Correct. And one of the beautiful things about the martial arts that I'm training in, it's called Kali. It's a Filipino martial art. Anything can be used as a weapon. Even my purse strap, the way I carry it now, I string it across my body. So if somebody wants to come at me, what I do is I bring them in closer and put the strap around their neck and choke them.
When you're walking around Wausau Center Mall that no longer exists, are you just kind of sitting there like by the Auntie Anne's, theoretically, if it was still there, going,
Pretzel.
I got my purse. If that person gets the cheese dip and approaches me with it.
Always.
Ever use those lines as a pickup line, Stacy? You know, I could choke you with this purse strap. Something like that.
Actually, a very good friend of mine is very well trained in jiu-jitsu and a couple of other martial arts, and we've like put each other in chokeholds. So, you know, we all have our kinks.
Is that what the kids are calling it these days?
Yes.
Jeez.
But come on, ladies, would you chime in here? I am not crazy. It goes back to the would you choose the bear or the guy that shows up in the woods? I would always choose the bear. I don't trust a lot of men.
I think the bear's pretty much a guaranteed death sentence. I think you may have some odds with the man. Statistically speaking.
Yeah, Stacy, you would because you've, trained, right? So
yeah.
I don't know.
/ stab. Have you ever watched? Have you ever seen? What was the one where the guy gets eaten by the bear? Grizzly Man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's different if you're a man, because when you go out in public, when you go to the store, when you're coming home at night, when you're walking from your garage to your, front door. See, thank you. Someone just chimed in. We are always sizing up our environment.
And that's good. It's good to be aware.
But I don't know that men do that on a regular basis. If
I don't think a
I'm
lot of men do.
somewhere, I'm always looking around for that potential danger scenario. And I don't know that you guys do the same.
I do, but I'm paranoid.
Well, that and I never leave my house, so there's nothing to size up.
And I don't do much of that anymore either. So no, I do. I mean, and that's look, I think there's certainly healthy levels and there's unhealthy levels of anything. And being aware is good. There is an unhealthy level of being
correct.
That gets to paranoia and it gets to very unhealthy thinking. But being healthily aware and prepared is certainly a good thing. I've been like that since I was a kid, since talking last night on Real Ghost Stories Online, it's like everything goes back to Tony's childhood trauma at some point.
It does. It plays a role.
It does. All of our trauma plays a role in everything. So I mean, it plays a role in the way we think about things and how we interpret things and how we run things through our minds and all that. So I can trace mine all the way back to childhood, and I can remember my mom working at the mall. And at that point in time in the 90s, there was a woman who was abducted named Lori Deppis. Do you remember this, Todd?
Absolutely.
Yep. And she also was our waitress at a restaurant called Scenario. Remember the Scenario?
Absolutely.
That we used to go to. I think we used to actually win gift certificates, probably from you, on the radio.
Probably.
Not even kidding. I think we did. And my parents did. And so I knew this woman, and then she's abducted, and I don't think they've ever found her.
I don't think they haven't.
It's still like, I want to do a cold case piece on that story. Yeah. I want to dig into that story. I think that would be very, very fascinating.
I just want to say, Stacy, and please understand, I'm just giving you hell. I think it's great that you are prepared. I think it's great that you've learned all this stuff. But when somebody tells you, well, I've got 5 knives stashed around, it's just something to play a little fun with. So don't take offense to me giving you some hell about it.
Of course not. No, and I appreciate that, because on the surface, it really does sound fucking crazy.
What does your therapist say about having 5 knives around the house?
Oh, she loves it. She loves it. Because it's empowerment. It's saying, and again, I would not have these in this place if I weren't trained to use them. And I'm not a black belt or anything, but I'm doing my best to climb the ladder here and learn new things so that God forbid something does happen, I can get in some really good swipes, whereas anybody else might have that freeze where they're like, oh my God, somebody's assaulting me. Yeah. No, I'm not going to react that way, because I have trained for that moment that I'm going to get some shots in where that person's going to be like, holy shit, this woman knows some stuff, and they might turn tail and run.
It makes sense. No,
I
think
you don't know until you're in that scenario. But
you don't.
We train for that so that you don't freeze in that moment, because you're not practicing being assaulted.
Yeah.
People don't know what that feels like. So you're terrified and your body freezes up. When you train for this, You've seen this scenario and you know how to react.
It's muscle memory.
Correct.
And I think that's the disclaimer on it. It's not just put a bunch of weapons around your house and suddenly it's all going to work out well. That's actually going to increase your odds of getting killed. But unless you know what you're doing with them, unless you are trained in them.
Barbara Miller just said that she's got stuff in her purse, bedstand, top drawer, baseball bat at the front door, concealed knives. I imagine a lot of the women who are chiming in have a reason that they've done this. You know, maybe there's something in our past where you've been attacked and you realize that's not going to happen to me again. I'm going to be ready next time. But you have to be ready and trained. Yes.
And you can't just tell yourself you're ready. And that's the important thing of it. It's not just this is here and now I'm safer. It's like having any weapon. It's like having a gun. I don't know how to use the gun. Well, then you're not safer because the gun is there. You're actually more at risk of you screwing this up and being used to. And that's the part that so many miss. And that's the key point. But yeah,
excuse me, I'm a huge advocate for women taking self-defense. I think it's really important. And not just one class and go, okay, I'm good. Over and over. Maybe go find a kickboxing class so that, you know, you can get in some cardio, meet some great women, that kind of thing. But learn how to just plant one really ginormous kick on somebody, because that kick might give you enough time to get away.
Well, I mean, could you imagine if like in our school systems, if we had, if we put an emphasis on that sort of training for young women as we do on football and everything. And I'm not knocking football, as I say it very disparagingly. But if we put some emphasis on actual life skills that people can use beyond the age of 18 for 99.99999% of the population, oh my gosh, how much more prepared would these people be for the world? Why would we ever want to prepare our high school students for becoming real life adults? What an idea. But if we actually did train them, I mean, not only in that, not only just in self-defense, but let's get a little more in depth and just about being emotionally mature, about understanding psychology, about understanding other human beings and being secure in ourselves. And we put some emphasis on our brains and that sort of stuff, the things that actually matter in life, not just getting a ball in a hole.
Correct.
I don't know. Maybe we'd be a little bit better. But that teaches teamwork. Sure, it does. But you know what? This teaches how to fucking interact with human beings.
It does. And it also teaches self-confidence. And I think that's where a lot of our society has fallen down. People don't feel confident. So what they're doing is they're going into these dark places and finding camaraderie where they didn't really need to go. Yeah. Maybe if you felt better about yourself when you looked in the mirror and felt like, I can do whatever I want to do and be confident in my life and go do things, maybe I don't need to join a cult.
Well, I'm a big proponent of cults. I think it's a good idea.
You are.
Oh my gosh.
I think, everyone should find a cult that they like. And incidentally, I'm starting one. So if you'd like to join a cult.
Todd, can you mute his mic at all?
Well, I'm thinking between him talking about how great cults are and me giving you hell for defending yourself, everybody's going to hate us at the end of this podcast. So
we're getting a lot of great comments from what I'm seeing.
Yes.
So my ladies have come forward and been yep, this is why.
Stacy's got a crew. Yep.
It's a trauma response, though, in a lot of ways. It is playing defense. I mean, you can look at it as offense, but you're really, at the end of the day, you're playing defense. And it's not like you have a choice in the matter. This is the world that we live in. Just because, I say it'd be lovely if we could maybe go to the offense but that's a systematic change. That's where an institution needs to change the way that we raise children and the way that we educate people. And until that changes, everybody's playing defense. And that seems to be where we've found our happy spot, quote unquote. But really, at the end of the day, you just keep playing more and more defense if we're never going to actually look at why we're playing defense and maybe start an offense to begin with. And then we don't have to defend ourselves against unhealthy, emotionally unregulated people that have very poor problem-solving skills.
Well, and we focus on a lot of those people here. A lot of our cases.
We wouldn't have a show without it.
The worst case scenario.
So back all this up. We don't want people to be well.
Fuck
because,
that.
Yeah.
Don't go for emotional intelligence. Just instantly react to shit and encourage more people to have 6 knives around their homes and constantly living in fear. No, I mean obviously we don't want that, but it's it is a societal shift, and I get it, and so look, I'm. Yeah, I mean, I'm giving you shit too, but I understand where you're coming from. I mean, going back to my story of back then, my mom had to leave she worked at the JCPenney in the catalog section. Remember when there was a catalog section at Penny's?
Yep.
And she would be there late at night, and then she'd walk out to her car, and often by herself in the dark parking lot, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And it scared the living shit out of me. And my mom was a fairly paranoid person too, a fairly anxious person. So it didn't really not play into it because I wasn't necessarily sheltered from these news stories. And I'm fine with that. I mean, look, it's worked out fine, right?
For all of us.
Yes. But I was hyper aware of the darkness of society, I think, at a younger age. And look, I mean, good or bad, it is what it is. I think young people need to be more aware, maybe not to an extreme. There's certainly, again, there's balance to all this. There's extreme and then there's oblivious. I feel like we're either in utter oblivious land or you're hiding 6 knives around your house. And there's we need more of the middle to be healthy. And we don't have that. So, I mean, I was paranoid as shit. My anxiety was through the roof every single night that she would be coming home and, is she home safe and all that. I'm an only child. I mean, and my dad is the most passive person in the world. It's fine. What are you worried about? Stop worrying. It's fine. And I wish I could adopt that at some days of my life. And she was the opposite. So that totally screwed with me. Then there was another girl that disappeared that same summer, I think. She was out riding her bike in the country, like where I like to go ride my bike in the country. And I forgot what her name was. Do you remember this story?
I don't remember that one, no.
It was right around the same time.
Right.
But anyway, there was a lot. There was a lot of people who were disappearing in our area right at that moment. And it was traumatizing. It was. I mean, it was not that I knew these people greatly by any means. I knew the one a little bit, but not much. But it was like, oh shit, this stuff really happens. And so that has always made me probably more aware than most men, I guess. I don't walk into any situation thinking, I'm a guy, I have a penis, I will win. I don't. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that are far stronger and, know how to use violence far more than I do because I've never been in a fight in my life physically. So, but it does make you more aware of your surroundings. When I'm in a theater, I'm always looking where the exits are going to be. In a crowd, I'm always looking. I'm always hyper aware. Good, bad, I don't know. At this day and age, I think it's probably not a bad thing. Maybe it was a little over the top years earlier. I don't know so much today.
If you're paying attention to the news, if you're paying attention to the school shootings, the mall shootings, the theater shootings, whatever, because they're all over now.
Yeah.
Grocery store. It's hard not to walk into those places and look around. If you see somebody who's acting strangely, it brings to mind, are they going to do something? Whereas before it was like, oh, look, that's just a weirdo. Well, now we wonder what's under their coat. What, why are they looking at me funny? It just, our pattern of thought has changed based on what we've seen.
And it doesn't help when you're dismissed for having concern. And that's something I've seen. When I was in Branson several years ago. Last time I was at the movie theater there. Went in to see something, sat down in the back row because I wanted to make out with who I was with, and just get out. No, I'm kidding.
You have to go to the back row.
I like sitting in the back row of movie theaters. I do. It's just better center back. You get you see the screen. It's good. Anyway, just sitting back there, and about 20 minutes into the movie, some guy comes in there, super baggy clothes, sits down. And it's like it was kind of past the point where someone's getting in late for the movie. It's like, why are you coming into this movie at this point? You've missed at least a quarter of it. Sits down. He's acting really fidgety, really suspicious. You can't tell what the fuck's underneath this guy's giant hoodie and whatever he has on. And all I'm thinking is this thing's going to get shot up. And he's like, looks like he's kind of casing the joint the way he's looking around. I don't know. There's a lot of meth around Branson. Maybe at the end of the day, that's what it was. The theater did not get shot up. But I did walk out of there and walked over to the manager and said, I don't know what, there's a guy that just walked in the movie late. This is weird. I feel very uncomfortable. I don't know what's going on. He's acting kind of odd. I mean, can we at least, I don't know what to do, but I'm letting you know. Oh, it's fine. Just came into the movie late. I said, but he's acting weird. He's moving in ways that are not normal for someone just watching a movie. Yeah, it's fine. Just go back, watch. Just like literally totally dismiss the whole fucking, not even like, oh, let me get security and let's have somebody go in and have your security person watch. Have the security person just observe from afar. Just something.
Do they have security?
They did. There was actually security on prem. The off-duty officers, I think, they rented them to come in and do it. But no, they were too busy, over at the kettle corn stand at the front of the building. Don't want to disturb that. And there's also the image too of, well, we don't want to, portray that this could be going on in our community. Yeah, well, you might need to before something horrible happens. I was so taken aback at just how dismissed I was at that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't overreacting. I was just trying to see something, say something. And nothing was done. And I left. I never watched the rest of the movie. I just got the hell out of there. Left a really shitty Yelp review. And
I'm sorry that you weren't taken seriously. I mean, that's really sad because you were being a good citizen. And who knows, maybe he wasn't up to anything. But we don't know that. There's
so much drug use in that area and in the sticks right outside of, and it's such a depressed town. I mean, look, Branson, you go in summer and there's fun, nice aspects of it. But there's a quarter of the year where there's nobody coming and going and there's no employment. And literally half of those motels people call home. And there's rampant drug use everywhere. It was like literally scary, like walking into the Taco Bell at some point. Shortly thereafter, that was the theater was the last straw for me, because it felt like any place I was going, almost any restaurant, any place, there was people that were so methed out. It was like The Walking Dead.
Ew.
And I had two little girls, and it was just like, this is just. I'm good. And then even going to like the local district and because they were in public schools and then going to some of those events too, it was like, shit. It's like so many of these parents are all methed out too. And it was enough for me to say we're moving and then got the hell out of there. Not a place I would live ever again.
Yuck.
But again, just kind of scary. And again, see something, say something. Being aware is half the battle. But again, if the zombies are overwhelming, you're not going to win that battle. So it was kind of spooky. So anyway, there we go. Well, I'm glad we've established the keeping of knives with training.
With training, do not have them if you don't know how to use them. But I've seen a lot of comments in our section. Yeah. A lot of women saying, yeah, right on. That's exactly what I do. So sorry, guys, you're outnumbered.
Well, I think if more predators were aware of this, maybe there'd be less people doing shit. Although predators don't seem to ever get held back by possible repercussions. That's the problem with that. It's just, Well, let's start getting into the yogurt shop murders, where it would have been wonderful if some of these young ladies at the time, had they had some sort of training, had there been some sort of thought on their own self-defense, would it have ended that way? I think it's a fair question to ask and to think about when we put our young people out there in the world. I'm going to note this. We're going to have to change the front title on the first segment here.
Kind of figured.
We kind of went off topic a little bit, so
Off topic?
I'll send an adjustment on that one. but on this part, let's watch some of the press conference from yesterday, and we'll break it down a little bit more about what was discussed and how they came to this conclusion after 34 years. Let's watch.
Over 3 decades after a horrible crime took the lives of 4 teenage girls and changed Austin forever, our hearts have healed. They're still broken. Finally, we have an answer. I'm joined today by our city manager, T.C. Broadnax, and deputy city manager, John Fortune.
After 34 years, the Austin police have made a significant breakthrough in this case. We now have evidence linking a specific individual to this case, Robert Eugene Brashers. The only physical evidence located at that scene has been matched to him. Their commitment demonstrates the will to never give up and what it means to seek justice and to seek truth. And their work will have a ripple effect across this country when they assist with other investigations.
This case wouldn't be where it is today. There wasn't recognition of everyone from different agencies across the country. The days after the shop caught on fire, as you can see, it appears to be just your everyday middle America retail space in a strip mall. The girls were found tied up with their own clothing as ligatures and bindings. There was evidence of sexual assault. All 4 have been shot in the head with a .22 caliber pistol. And Amy was also shot with a .380 pistol. And then the building was set on fire before the suspect left the scene. Some of the only physical evidence that was recovered was a spent .380 shell casing that was located in the floor drain. There was one confession from a juvenile named Maurice Pierce. 8 days after the murders, Pierce was at North Cross Mall, which is down the street from the yogurt shop, and he's with his friend named Forrest Wellburn. He was carrying a .22 pistol in his waistband. He was 16 at the time, and he was arrested for the possession of the pistol and taken down to the homicide office, where he was interrogated for several hours by Detective Hector Polanco. The ballistics on the .22, to see if it would try to match it with the fragments from the murder scene, were conclusive at best. There was never any physical evidence linking them to the yogurt shop. A landmark Supreme Court case comes out called Crawford v. Washington. It reformulated what hearsay statements can be admitted in criminal cases under the 6th Amendment. In 2018, the unknown Y profile was resubmitted for retesting because there have been technological advancements. I inherited the case in June of 2022. I spent the first few months sort of reviewing it. But one of the first things I did was I met a group of subject matter experts on DNA and genealogy, and we sat around a round table. I don't know what made me go down that rabbit hole that morning, but I did. I'm glad I did. What I found was that it had not been submitted into the NIBIN system in many years. NIBIN is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. It's kind of like CODIS for shell casings. The original ballistics report said that in all probability, the weapon used from that .380 projectile was limited to an AMT brand backup model .380 handgun that was used to kill Amy. So we kind of sat down and decided, well, what are we going to do next? How are we going to solve these cases together, assuming they are related? So they had some items that could be submitted and retested, including a sexual assault kit. We reached out to all of the labs in the country that do YSTR typing and asked if they can manually search against our unknown profile. And we got a match. The South Carolina State Lab was the only lab in the country that responded that they had a match, quote match, to our unknown YSTR, Robert Eugene Brashers. He has a perfect 27 for 27 match to our unknown profile in the yogurt shop. So this particular Y profile is very rare. They had never really seen it before, and their population statistics estimated that it's only 0.12% of the U.S. population. So now we're getting somewhere that, we're building a case here that this is Brashers, but still 0.12%. We need to be at 100%. But we're in there. He's starting to look better and better. It wasn't until 2018, the very sort of infancy of genetic genealogy, that these detectives, some of them who are here today, got together and collaborated. How are we going to identify this guy? And in 2018, that DNA testing confirmed that all of those unsolved up there were all from Mr. Robert Brashers. So he's good for the sexual assaults and murders throughout the 90s that he never had to stand trial for. The guy even faked his own obituary and put it in the newspaper to establish an identity. Her mom would ask her to call the dad by a different name at times. So we start researching this guy on our end. How is he related to our case? So we looked into this guy a little further, ran his plate, and it showed to be a stolen car out of Georgia. It was stolen on November 29th. During this interaction, he was also in possession of a .380 pistol. It's not necessarily unique to one individual, like autosomal STRs used in CODIS. STRs are passed down paternally. So me and my brother have the same YSTR profile, unless there's some sort of mutation. But we're trying to figure out how to get from, we're pretty sure it's him, to we know it's him. This was going to be pushing all of our chips on the table with this. This was going to be the last shot effort. One of the things we retested was Amy's fingernail clippings from the autopsy. He controlled 4 women alone, tied them up, and sexually assaulted one of them in 1997 in Memphis. And I'm sorry that it took 34 years for us to get here, but we're here now. And, Amy's final moments on this earth were to solve this case for us because of her fighting back. Okay. Thank you.
Austin Forensic Science and Austin Police have been actively working together, sometimes daily and hourly lately, along with dozens of partner agencies, forensic laboratories, and nationally renowned subject matter experts. Thanks to the due diligence of South Carolina, we finally had the missing forensic piece, a known suspect and his DNA reference sample. Given the totality, the consistency, and the strength of these data, I am confident in the update that we're providing to you today.
There was no physical evidence tying them to the crime. Mr. Scott confessed after an 18-hour interrogation. Mr. Springsteen confessed after a 5-hour interrogation, and both confessions implicated the other 2 boys. Both later recanted their confessions and said they were false and coerced. In 2009, DNA testing found biological evidence that did not match any of the 4 boys, and on the eve of retrial, their cases were dismissed pending further investigation by the Travis County District Attorney's Office.
Let's pause for a second.
So much time.
Because that's a big piece of this case is the false confessions.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk with Bob Motta about that in just a little bit, about false confessions and how they're brought up and how once one says those words aloud, no matter what type of pressure may be on one to say those words aloud, it's set in stone then. It's, well, you said it. You said it. And they keep going back to it no matter what. He said he confessed. He confessed. He said he confessed. And we never take a closer look, or we quite often in the past don't take, and still to this day don't always take a closer look at the context to it. Well, how did he confess? What kind of confession was that? Was this someone where you locked a person in a box and tortured them for a year, and then they finally confessed while they were eating their own poop, like Richard Allen in the Delphi murders? Or was this you took some youths who had, some problems that were going on in their lives and pressured them and threatened them and made them say that they did it? That's a fascinating one in this case because it happened within the course of hours. I mean, we're talking like 18 hours of interrogation, wearing someone down and eventually getting these confessions and false memories. But that's a scary thing because I think when you look at the false confessions that some of these kids gave, they almost started to believe it. They started to believe they were just not remembering things correctly, and that these officers were helping pull those memories out. And then they stated them in those interviews. After walking away, they walked back going, wait a second, I'm not sure about that. But that's a weird thing to think about. How does that hit you guys, of the idea that, do you think someone could get a false confession out of you if you were in these guys' shoes and you were accused of being there that night and you weren't and you didn't kill them, but you got a system that is just hounding you and you're that young and dumb, as everybody is, and they're hounding you and pushing you the way that they did? Do you think that you could have ended up being one of them and confessing to something that you did not do?
Todd, what do you think?
Oh, I was going to wait for you to go first.
Gosh, let's go back to you. I need to think about this a little bit.
It's tough because you want to say, well, I would never confess to something that I didn't do, especially murder, right? Mm-hmm. Essay and all that kind of stuff. But then you watch the video of the interrogations, and we only saw bits and pieces of it. We watched it here on the show, but you could see little by little their confidence in themselves going away because of the way they were treated, because of the way the interrogation went, the questions, all that kind of stuff. And then you start to go, God, would I start thinking, hey, maybe I did do something, or maybe there's a lapse of memory here? Mm-hmm. Why does he know so much about something that I supposedly did and I don't? And also, I just want to throw this out there. We're brought up to respect law enforcement. Correct. So if a law enforcement officer is sitting there telling you that this is what happened, this is kind of what it looks like, and you're being implicated on this, there's a good portion of me that goes, well, why wouldn't I trust what this person's telling me? Even if I don't remember it, but if this guy's telling me it, it's got to be true.
Especially back then.
Yes.
It was not the client. I mean, and people who are younger going, well, weird. I mean, it was different. They were called officer friendly, is what we called the police officers. And they came to our schools, and if you saw them on the street, they'd give you baseball cards.
Yes.
And it was, they actually understood that having good PR and having relationships with the community was important, and they shouldn't look like a military force coming in and invading your town. It does kind of tend to push people away, just saying. But it was a very different time. And so, yeah, exactly. You would be thinking, well, I should trust these people. Like, why would I not? I mean, and then, well, there are such things as false memories and or blocking things out. And I think that's kind of what they were trying to do with these kids, is tell them, well, you blocked it out. It was too traumatic. You blocked it out. So I'm going to fill in the blanks. And our brains are good at filling in blanks.
Yep.
Remember in sitcoms I'm dating myself a little bit, back in the 80s, amnesia was a thing. Remember that? If you hit your head.
And also soap operas, right? Everybody had amnesia in soap operas.
All these characters that would suddenly, they get whacked on the head and their entire lives, they can't remember anything. And quicksand was something that we had to worry about. So we believe this crap, this absolute crap that, well, maybe I don't remember what really happened. And so they can get into your psyche and make you question yourself. Especially after 18 hours, you're tired, you want to sleep, you want to eat. You probably, maybe they let you go to the bathroom, but not as often as you need to. You're probably nervous as hell, probably have like explosive diarrhea. I mean, good grief. This is not an ideal scenario to get the truth out of somebody. This is traumatic. So of course they're going to say what they need to say to get the fuck out of there.
And then the interrogators can check their box and say, see, I got it.
Yeah.
One of the investigators on this case, and I don't have their name in front of me, but he was known as someone that he's got the perfect batting average, 10 out of 10. He's getting the confessions out of people.
Was that Hector Polanco?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was Hector. And great, sounds lovely on paper, but not everybody has a confession to give.
Right.
That's the thing. But that was overlooked because, and I think Hector thought he was getting actual confessions.
Do you think do you think he really thought those were confessions, or he was
Yep.
just going for the, you believe that?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I think he thought he was getting confessions. I think he thought his tactics were breaking these people down enough to the raw data that's coming out of them, and that must be true. Because if it was, because he's using his own, self as a guide. Because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't confess to it. These people, why would they confess to it if they didn't do it? And that's the thinking I think a lot of people have. Not everybody is of the same ilk or of the same strength or of the same character that they would be able to withstand that sort of mental torture and not come out saying something that is not true. Some people can. Some people are going to sit there and no, you're never going to get me to say it. Keep wasting your time. I'll sit here till I pass out. But even if I'm passed out, I'm not waking up and still going, yeah, I did it. Not everybody has that. Everybody's different. And what they did is they took some kids and they basically beat it out of them. They didn't physically beat them, but they mentally beat this out of them. Mm-hmm. And they would not take no for an answer. They wouldn't simply accept, maybe you just got the wrong guys. And that's a dangerous way of doing any sort of investigation. But it's a narrow-minded focus of, you got to get to your goal. The public, there's the pressure. They want the answers here. And they couldn't give it to them. And honest to God, at that point in time, there was no way of figuring out who this was. Yeah. We didn't have the DNA technology. We did not have it. So unless you caught the guy and he confessed to it, there really was no way of doing it. All this is a result of technology that came about decades after the actual murders took place. So that's how we got there. Let's watch a little bit more of the press conference from yesterday. And this, I should note too, this was like a 2-hour press conference. We've minimized it down to kind of the greatest hits so you can see the big portions of it.
Time has passed, but it is never too late for justice. And the families of Amy, Jennifer, Eliza, and Sarah so deserve justice.
Their courage and leadership to address this need for resources in Texas shows what can be accomplished if we are willing to break down walls and collaborate for the benefit of victims and their loved ones. In 2017, I was called into one of my first meetings as the first assistant district attorney with then Travis County District Attorney Margaret Moore. It was to meet with Bob and Pam Ayers and Sean and Angie Ayers, family of Amy Ayers. She'd been tragically murdered in the yogurt shop murders, and I remembered the case well since I'd lived in Austin since 1976 and grown up in Northwest Hills near the yogurt shop. I was so incredibly honored and humbled and proud to be entrusted with an important case such as this one. The AG's Cold Case and Missing Persons Unit was created to support law enforcement agencies across the state with their unsolved homicide investigations. They have never stopped following leads, testing evidence, and trying to seek the truth. He used ligatures to tie up his victims, often their clothing. He used a firearm, most often a .380 or a .22, with gunshot wounds to the head of his victims. He sexually assaulted his victims, often young girls, and sometimes, as we've seen, he set fire to the crime scenes.
Vengeance was never it. It was always the truth. And I'm here to really talk about the police department and how involved and supportive they have been from the very beginning. 10 years ago, my mom died. 10 years ago, my mom died. I went to the cemetery on Hancock to fill out the paperwork. And the clerk behind the desk, when she looked up the location of my mom's plot, paused. And then she said, I've lived in Austin for so long. Please know that your family has always been in my prayers. We have been robbed of a life with nieces and nephews and grandchildren, and with sisters to grow old with. This sort of mindless violence continues to steal from all of us. I don't yet know how this information is going to change my life. But what I learned about myself in the past 2 days is that my brain was split into One part of my brain has been screaming.
At one point, I had given up on God, but he never gave up on me, and I am thankful for that. The world needing more Mindy Monfords. The result you see today is when you have an army of people working together to reach a common goal, not for themselves, but for the victims and their families. Thank you to all of you. She went to work. She started making phone calls to everyone that would listen, and the ones that didn't listen, she made them. She was a thorn in the side of many detectives, but she eventually gained the respect of all of them. This day, I was never sure was going to get here. This chapter will close soon, but we're just getting started. You will see.
When Sean asked me to fight for justice, I said, "How far do you want me to push?" And he said, "As far as you can." That lit a fire in me that I had never experienced in my life. And I say this to all the other family victims out there. Keep going. You will get knocked down, but get back up with a vengeance. Do not take no when your gut is telling you to push. Do not give up. Fight for what is right. He was warned against how intense and passionate I was in order to help this case. He never wavered. He was willing to put all of his ego aside and do what was right for the girls. She has set the bar for cold case units and missing persons units in Texas, and together we will be forming a foundation to further advance law enforcement agencies and cold cases around the country. Open the cold case boxes, please. Put the evidence in the databases. Run the rape kits. Do not wait. Do it today. You could help ease someone's pain. We have got to do better for the victims. I would like to ask President Trump for a conversation to help fix this broken system. I'm glad I was able to keep my word. I was able to help you and our family find justice. I was never going to give up.
You create hope. The yogurt shop murders will always be part of Austin's history. The pain from that night and its aftermath will never go away. But with the knowledge we have now, we can share some peace. God bless Amy, Jennifer, Sarah, and Eliza. They will always be a part of our city's identity.
Well, every year the software doesn't, I'd probably pass that to DTF about how often we should be resubmitting stuff. They have made, it's been a big push by the ATF lately that software has gotten so much better just recently that I've seen, and this goes out to across the country, you know, if you've got old shell casings, resubmit them to NIBIN. We are getting hits in other cases already, just for the last. So the approach I took for this case was a different approach than have been taken before. My goal was to look at all the evidence. What evidence do I have, and what can I do with it? As technology gets better, you know, you need to constantly reevaluate your cases, and you know, go back into the, go back in the vault and find out where that evidence is, and make sure you actually still have it, and do stuff with it. I took the approach of, I'm not going to listen to the confessions. I've never listened to them. I've never read them, the transcripts, and that should be the goal of every cold case. It occurred in 1990, and it was solved in 2018.
Let's pause.
We know the gun he got stopped in.
And I think that's a big thing that's going on now, and it should give every person who's gotten away with your shit forever some pause, because, yeah, the technology has gotten pretty freaking amazing. And a lot of it, people who haven't been caught, it's not because the evidence doesn't exist. It's because it hasn't been run into the databases yet. And I hope that there is concerted efforts on the part of every department across the country to get that data into these databases, because once that happens, then things can be connected, things can be linked up, and answers can be found. I wonder if in some areas, I know in some areas they do have like volunteer groups that help with this sort of thing, because it is a daunting task. You're talking decades of material that needs to essentially be cataloged into a system that can then do its matching job. But I would encourage anyone, if you're passionate about this and want to see more cases like this and justice brought to more victims, reach out to your local departments and say, hey, can I help in any way? Because they do look for many do look for volunteers and things like this, and there's not enough people out there to do all of it, and that manpower unfortunately becomes the big thing, and funding, because if they're looking for volunteers, it means they have no money to pay anybody for some of it. But the satisfaction and the justice that can be brought by re-examining evidence in so many of these cold cases is stunning. I mean, look what it led to here. And that was because somebody said, rerun this. The evidence has been sitting there for quite some time, but it was finally rerun because somebody took the time to do it, because somebody remembered it. And they found it. So pretty amazing what that sort of technology can do.
It's heartening. It's also very sad to see the victims' family members, but also the people involved with the investigation. This was something they were very passionate about. It was something that moved them very deeply. Obviously, the girls losing their lives and the many years that this case was cold, it touched that community. And Austin's one of those communities, it's very progressive. It's kind of a party place now, but back then it was just another town in Texas when this all took place.
And it really was. It took Austin 34 years to name the man who killed 4 teenage girls in the yogurt shop in North Austin. His name, Robert Eugene Brashers, a serial predator, turns out. Yeah, serial predator in this case. Already linked to multiple rapes and murders across the country. He died by suicide in 1999, long before anyone connected him to the case. But the real story isn't just how they solved it. It's how they didn't. How investigators locked onto 4 innocent young men. How 2 of them were convicted. 1 sent to death row based entirely on confessions that never matched the evidence. How DNA that excluded them was ignored, downplayed, or twisted to fit a theory the state refused to let go of. It's a case about tunnel vision, about coercive interrogations, about prosecutors doubling down even when the science told them they were wrong. It's about what happens when you let the need for closure override the need for truth. We're not just talking about the yogurt shop murders. We're talking about what it reveals about the system itself and the lives that get crushed when that system refuses to admit it was wrong. Joining us now is defense attorney Bob Motta, host of Defense Diaries and someone who spent his career fighting the kinds of tactics that wreaked havoc in this case. We're going to break down how 2 innocent men ended up in prison, how the courts failed to stop it, and how many more cases like this are still buried in evidence lockers across the country today. Bob, as always, welcome and thank you for joining us. When you see a case like this where the system locked onto the wrong guys and absolutely did not look back until it was forced to, what does it tell you about how we chase resolution over truth?
Well, sadly, that's just a reality of what we're dealing with the criminal justice system these days, because at some point in time, it became less about justice and the search for truth, and it became more about winning. And I think the biggest problem that you have from the prosecutor's side of the equation is the fact that they're elected. It's a political position. Mm-hmm. And when you have a political position, and you're having to run for election, you're going to try to beef up your resume. Okay? And if you're running for prosecuting attorney, tough on crime is the way to go. That's the way they've always said how you win the position. So, and what is tough on crime? Oh, well, my conviction rate's 98%. At the exclusion of the truth. So that's just a sad fact. That is an absolute reality that no one is going to ever convince me otherwise. That is one of the primary issues with our system these days. And that is not to say in any way, shape, or form that I don't think that there are amazing prosecutors out there that are doing this the right way, that really do, care about the truth, and that's what they're. But at some point, you come in, because I think it's probably a lot like when you come in on the defense side of it, and you come in as a young lawyer, you're bright-eyed, you're bushy-tailed, you think, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to change the world from inside, only to get bitch slapped and realize, all right, this system's been set in stone for a long time, bro. You ain't doing shit, so you're in there trying to one-time it. And I have a feeling that a lot of prosecutors go into that job, same way, but on the opposite side of it, just saying, look, I'm here to do right by victims and to bring justice to the families. And, so you go in with all the best intentions, and then like anything, the bastards just grind you down, so ultimately when you see a case like this, and it's two sides of it, right? It's like the law enforcement and the prosecutor. It's both. It starts with law enforcement. And, when you look at the yogurt shop murder case and you're thinking about it, it was like a hard-on cop that just decided for some reason that these 4 kids had done this. Like, it's just a fucking total hard-on cop that had no evidence to suggest that, just like came up with this concept. Oh, it's the Creek kids. It's the Creek fucking people. That's what makes sense. I mean, and the guy locks into it, and then they start using Hector Palanco to start fucking extracting confessions from these kids, man. And it's like, yeah, it's scary is what it is, Tony.
And it's scary because at the same point, if you look at that group of folks who were doing the investigation at the time, I don't think that they were sitting there going, we're going to get these kids convicted. I don't care if they did it or not. I think they believed what they were doing was right. I think they thought that they were actually, well, the kids confessed. They must have confessed. And they confessed. It's real. That's it. Then they get their blinders on, and there's no room for any other way of thinking. But I don't think they were sitting there nefariously going, let's just get these kids and call it a day. And that's the scary part, when you actually believe your own myth, your own bullshit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, if you watch the documentary, you can see, especially the main 2 guys, right? The first 2 investigators were just a couple of guys that were really trying to do everything in their absolute power to try to solve this case for these families that, in this case that devastated Austin and Texas in general, but Austin in particular. Yeah, no, there is no doubt in my mind that in terms of trying to get it solved, that when they kind of landed on these kids, but remember, it wasn't those first 2 guys that we're talking about here. Those first 2 guys that are still tight with all the family, and it was well known that Polanco was the cop who would extract false confessions. Quite frankly, I was a little bit shocked. Not only that one of the cops kind of threw one of the other cops over, and I understand that, and I don't know if Polanco is still with us or not, but when you got another cop saying, this guy was infamous for getting innocent people to confess to shit they didn't do, and that's one of the other cops. I mean, if I'm a lawyer out there, and
But at the time, was it viewed as that, though? I mean, yes, retrospectively, we can look at it and go, he got people to confess to shit they didn't do. At the time, they're looking at it as, he's the guy who gets confessions out of people.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, yeah, it did matter. It mattered to some of the cops. Like that's what I'm saying. To I forget what his name is, maybe John Jay or whatever. He's one of the most prominently featured cops in there. You know, the guy who really haunted him, and he's like, I'm still thinking about it. The guy with the striped shirt, right? Like, like when this shit gets off.
Yes,
I was looking for him online yesterday to see if he wore his shirt again.
He did. I saw a video earlier today, and he did wear the shirt.
Yeah, that dude, man. No, like he knew. Like he was an intellectually honest cop, and you know, he had problems with them looking at these kids. He didn't think that these kids were the right call, and ultimately they moved him off the case. You know, because of his kind of resistance to what they were putting out there in terms of how they thought this case went down. So, I mean, cops are just like anybody else. They're individuals. There's always going to be you know, differences in opinion, just like any other job. But you know, ultimately, you know, what happened here was they get locked in on a concept, on a theory, and it's really hard to get them off of it, you know, and ultimately, and then it started with the cops there, and then it moved up to the prosecutor's office. You know, like it's a compelling story, and the Creek kids, you know, they sound like fucking nefarious little motherfuckers, and let's hang it on them, you know. It's like the problem is when you don't have any evidence. No matter what your intentions are.
They were able to coerce a confession out of them, and then you got a community that's seething to find somebody.
I was just gonna say that.
And if you go, the River Kids did it, of course the River Kids did it, and you're basically you're running on hysteria.
Totally.
And hysteria is not fact. Hysteria rarely ever produces anything out of it that is tangible or meaningful once the hysteria calms down. But unfortunately, it's like, we got it out of the hysteria. It's fact. And that's the scary thing. 18 hours to get Michael Scott to confess. Robert Springsteen confessed after 5. Neither had legal counsel present. Both later recanted. We look at this happened in the very, very early 90s. Have things changed all that much in the United States of America in terms of getting confessions out of people?
No. Next question.
Yeah.
You know, no, they haven't. I mean, the read technique, I think, should be outlawed. Look, they're always going to be able to come into an interview and lie to you until the Supreme Court, you know, reverses that ability to be able to do so. Because right now, you know, and they can't lie about certain things. Like they can't say, if you just confess to me right now, I'm going to make sure I'm going to walk you out of here. We're not going to charge you. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. Like if you're talking about some kind of immunity deal, that's going to be brokered by a prosecuting attorney, not a cop. But I mean, they can certainly come in and say, "Hey, man, you know, we got your fucking homie over here in the next interview room, and that is a real problem for you because this guy just fucking ratted you out." You know, so like, and you're telling this guy that, and it's all like a mind fuck.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like you're in there because just like. We could spend probably a full day trying to get people to understand that false confessions are a real thing. Yeah. And you know, we had Michael Scott's attorney on with us last night.
Yeah.
And he was fascinating. But you know, one of the things that we were talking about was this concept of trying to convince people that there is such a thing as false confessions, because everybody's initial instinct in terms of like being a human being is, hey, you know what? There's no fucking way I would ever confess to something I didn't do. I don't give a fuck what they're doing to me. That's what people say. That's what people think. And that is the base from where people jump off from. Like, so like everybody thinks I would never confess to something I didn't do. Like that is just, so that is where you're trying to overcome from that cognitive bias right there, that I just wouldn't do it, so no one would do it. You know, but the reality is that when you get into a room with a skilled interrogator, you know, and the memory and the mind, it plays tricks on you. It is very easy to fool your mind into something being true. or some version of it being true. And it's exactly what they do in these interviews and these interrogations where, you know, like kids come in there like, I didn't have a fucking thing to do with it. And they just suggest facts, and you know, they're dropping little breadcrumbs, because ultimately the person needs to kind of come up with some version of it on his own. But you know, obviously if they don't know any of the facts of how it went down, it's very problematic.
So Bob, where was their defense? Where were their people for these people who were wrongly accused and falsely confessed? Where were their people to come forward and say, wait a minute, no, they didn't do this. You don't have any evidence against them. It feels like that part of it fell off.
Yeah, I mean, their people ended up being their lawyers. You know what I mean? But even with the lawyers, I remember they were convicted. So then their people became the appellate lawyers who decided to continue the fight. And, you know, but in terms of, if you're asking like the question, hey, Bob, where are all the witnesses coming forward at trial? Your problem here is that you're limited to, and it was a long trial. It was a long trial. It was, you know, but the thing that ended up happening with it is you've got people that were in a very segregated area from kind of the rest of the public down in this creek. And who are you going to get to testify if they didn't know their whereabouts? I mean, because essentially what you're talking about is like an alibi witness. You know, you can't just throw a bunch of character witnesses up and talk about, unless it's somebody to talk about that, you know, this is not a violent person. You know, they got a nature, you know, but in terms of like, this is a good guy and he would never do that kind of shit, you're not getting that kind of witness on. So short of having a witness who is going to say, yeah, I'm his fucking alibi. You know why? Because I was with them last night and he wasn't anywhere near the yogurt shop. So go fuck yourself. Quit trying to get an innocent man, bastard.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a huge difference between an interrogator and a manipulator. And the sad part is, I think a lot of these individuals, that especially the ones that had like the really strong records of, you know, they're always getting the confessions. That's manipulation. That's not interrogation. There's a huge difference between the two. And one is actually getting information, one is making things up. But at the end of the day, if the result is looked at the same, there's a lot more incentive to have more manipulators on your force than there is interrogators, if that's going to supposedly bring you the gratification that you need and bring you the results you need in that moment. May not work out long term, but if it gets that case off your desk and gets it moving at that moment in time, that's what a lot of them are going for.
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt. And this is not a situation where you're casting shade on every cop or prosecutor in the world. It's not. But and we talk about this many, many times over here, man. It's
a fundamental brokenness of the system.
It just is, man. And it's like the power with a corrupt fucking cop is that they have so much power. That's what terrifies me about them, is that, like, in the cops, like the prosecutors, like defense attorneys, I think a majority of us come into it with the right intentions, right? And you end up just getting just absolutely perverted by the system. And I don't mean perverted in a sexual sense. I mean, just like you just, it becomes impossible to kind of fight the grind of it. You know what I mean? And it's like, and for cops, I mean, can you imagine how fucking tempting it is to, if you've got a case where you're like, man, I fucking know, I know this dude is the guy, and I just don't have the evidence to prove it, how tempting it would be just to plant one little fucking thing. Just
well, your gut instinct better be right.
Well,
but even if it is right, and then you're caught planting something, and then let's say the person is it, well, that's what's going to get them off too.
Correct.
Well, it's the whole Gacy thing that I uncovered. Like you had Gacy, you know, they didn't know he was the monster, right? They knew that kidnapped the last kid, and they were convinced of it.
They knew he was a monster. They didn't know he was the monster.
Right. Well, they I don't even know at that point if he had slipped past just like a fucking creep into a monster in the minds of the cops, because he wasn't really on their radar, even though they like to say that, even though he was very much on their fucking radar. If Chicago police had done their job, they would have had Gacy after the third kid. But they didn't do their job. So, but that's a whole different thing. But so, yeah, I mean, they planted the evidence in terms of injecting that receipt into that house to get back in, because 10 days had gone by and they couldn't get anything on him. They fucking knew it was him. They couldn't get anything on him because the guy wasn't an idiot. And like, he's not an idiot in the sense that he's not going to go out and be killing people during the time in which he's been tailed 24/7 by the police. So in that situation, somebody up top, Kozenzak, makes the decision he's going to plant the fucking the photo receipt just to get them in to get the second warrant, because they needed to get back in the house. So they get back in the house, and that's on the second warrant. They start uncovering the graveyard and the crawl space. So when I uncovered that, I'm like, okay, this is a fucking moral dilemma, right? Like, you've got this absolute fucking monster who absolutely needs to be stopped, but you can't get to him the way that you got to him because the Constitution has to matter. We can't pick and choose. It becomes such a slippery slope when you're like, okay, but this guy's a fucking monster animal. But we're just going to pretend like the Constitution doesn't exist for this one case because we got to take this. You can't do it. You just can't do it because it's a slippery slope. Because then, and the next time you're like, look, we did it for Gacy. This is basically the same shit. And then it becomes more and more. I mean, you just can't do it. You can't chip away at those incredibly important rights. And so, I mean,
and it's not like they wouldn't have gotten Gacy eventually anyhow. I mean, there would have been something would have tripped it to get in there and get that information.
100%.
But they did it. They, basically they warped the level. They got there a little bit faster than maybe they needed to. But obviously ultimately did get them. But do the ends justify the means is kind of the question.
Right, it can't. We can't allow it to. As much as we're tempted to say yes, fuck him, we can't.
Yeah,
it's that simple. Like,
because there's a case where there's going to be a case where there isn't a graveyard in the guy's basement or in his under his house.
You can't set a precedent that it's okay to pick and choose who the Constitution applies to. It's that simple.
Yeah,
you can't do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like if you allow that one time, you've then created some kind of precedent that look, there's exceptions to who the Constitution's not going to apply to. And to go back to exactly what you just said, because you're not always going to. They had no fucking idea this guy had a graveyard in his crawl space. None. Zero. They were literally looking for one kid. It just happened to stop one of the fucking most horrific serial killers of all time. So I mean, it was a boon. And they didn't get caught. Like, I caught him.
Yeah,
and Gacy's dead. So it's still an amazingly fascinating and kind of terrifying story in a kind of just in a global type of way. But man, I mean, you can't do it, but I get why they do.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. If you've got a case where you've got a guy that you just know, like the whole Avery thing with the keys, like I really do believe that they planted those keys, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that Stephen Avery wasn't the guy. And I certainly think that law enforcement in that case believed that Stephen Avery was the guy. And they're like, okay, this fucking guy walked out after 18 years on the last shit, even though it wasn't him. He's like, we're going to make sure that he's not walking out on this one, because I mean, it's like, so,
or it could be that Manitowoc didn't want to pay him $1 million too. That
100%, dude.
Yeah,
100%. Like,
that's a good point.
Allie and I are in the middle of that thing, and I have, like, until I've looked through all of it, I'm not reaching a conclusion based on anything that I've seen, whether it be making a murderer and convicting a murderer. I don't give a fuck. Those both had, those both had objectives going in, or soon got an objective after they started filming. So yeah, I don't know, man, because yeah, that is more than $1 million. I mean, he was suing for more than $1 million. You know, I mean, it was a major lawsuit, and it was one that they were going to have to pay out on because he was absolutely, unequivocally not guilty of the first thing that he spent all the time on. So yeah.
What's also interesting, I mean, in the yogurt shop case here, we have Austin, we have this community, 4 young girls dead. Everybody is scared. Anyone who has children is thinking, well, this could happen to me. This could happen to my daughters. We need justice. We need our boogeyman. We gotta, and so it's the Creek kids. They're spooky. They're weird. In Wisconsin, it's Stephen Avery. He's got the junkyard. He's weird. He's kind of out there. And when you re-examine cases like this, when you look at them locally, and this is, I think, kind of a new way of doing it, because back in the 90s, unless it was a major national news story, we weren't hearing about the yogurt shop murders in Wisconsin or Chicago or wherever anybody is. Just like a lot of places was not hearing about the Stephen Avery case until Making a Murderer came out. Yep. And locally, the atmosphere, the temperature in those rooms is oftentimes quite different than any place else in the country who may be looking at it from a slightly lower temperature. I want to ask Stacy and Todd about the Avery case for a moment, because I haven't lived in Wisconsin for more than half my life now, but I was there when this all went down. What is the overall feel? What's the temperature in Wisconsin about Stephen Avery? Is it that he's guilty? Because that's the vibe I got when I made a mention of it a couple months ago on a radio station in Wisconsin. I was talking about the procedural issues with the case, and oh my God, people didn't like that. People did not like any questioning of the law enforcement on that case whatsoever. But the rest of the country is like, look at all the holes in this. Not there.
Well, I think it's because, we don't want to believe that there's a miscarriage of justice right in our backyard. And so I think a lot of people are invested in this case because they know people in these communities. So I think they feel a little closer to it than a case down in Austin, Texas. We don't feel that connection to it. I do hear a lot of people talk about how he's wrongly accused, and it just surprises me.
Because I brought it up on Kiss FM in Green Bay, Appleton many months ago, and got flooded with calls of like, how dare he say that this, and granted, it is the market where this happened. It is the Stephen Avery market. And so there's a lot of people connected to that case. I mean, I even have, it's a niece of actually a uncle of mine, not by blood, is Teresa Hallbach. But I was very surprised that there was the vitriol on it. And again, I don't even know what my opinion is on the case. I haven't looked at it in quite some time. I know there was Making a Murderer. Candace Owens, you can have your opinion about her every which way, and I think many do. Had that other doc that came out that was more
Convicting
critical.
Murderer.
Yeah, Convicting a Murderer, which I watched and I thought was interesting, and it pointed out a lot of the shittiness of the original doc in terms of things that were edited to be a certain way. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of questions there in my mind. It's anyway, we're not talking about that case, but it is. But the point is, your atmospheres, your temperatures in the room, and the pressure to convict and get your guy is such heavier in the places where it took place, obviously, than others, and you're going to have very different viewpoints sometimes depending on those geographics.
100%. Look, the reality is pressure makes diamonds. And when you're in a community wherein something like this, and I'm talking about the yogurt shop murders, happens, you have a stunned, scared community, and there's going to be expectations. And it starts with the victims' families. And, cops are like just internally feeling that pressure, for the families, because they realize that the families want answers, need answers, deserve answers. And to have that kind of pressure on you as a cop, it's like where you see it in shows, the obsessed cop who can't sleep, who's working the case constantly, who's, there's got to be the answer here. And sometimes there just isn't the answer. And sometimes you just have to really, let the thing go cold and wait to see if something else develops, because what you have at the time just simply isn't going to be enough. And I think that like what you were talking about, Tony, that sometimes that the external factors may push people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do if all things were equal. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, just it's, again, that political pressure, there's motives for reasons for people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. And I think that it happens sometimes, because it's like, I'm always sitting there thinking in cases where it's just clear that they railroaded somebody, and where it's so clear that they railroaded somebody that the question then becomes, did you knowingly convict an innocent person just to get a conviction on this fucking thing? Because that's a hard question. I mean, if ever I were to hear an answer from a prosecutor that yes, they did, that person needs to be ripped away from the job of prosecutor as quickly as humanly possible, because that is like the last type of human being you need in that type of position. Because to think that somebody would do it intentionally is horrifying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you said, I think most of them come in with the best intentions. I don't think that typically they are trying to frame up innocent people. It's like, even go ahead, T.
We have the attitude, obviously, we want to win, and that's kind of a toxic thing, I think, in our culture. We got to win. At what cost are we winning? Especially when it comes to things like this. Yes, you may get the conviction, you may get the person behind bars, and then the family may be able to sleep better at night because they think the bad person is gone,
but they're
and
still
justice
out there.
has been served. But not if you got the wrong person. Not if the wrong person is behind bars. You just ruined more lives. Yeah. And that victim that's dead, I can probably guarantee if they were a decent human being, they probably are not sitting wherever they're sitting now going, oh, this is great. At least everybody's sleeping well at night, but you didn't get the right guy. Like that's not how that works. But the Innocence Project says nearly a third of DNA exonerations involve false confessions. I mean, this is obviously kind of a new thing we're coming about now with the DNA technology that exists and looking back at these older cases. Bob, I want to ask you, I mean, as a defense attorney, how difficult is it to take on a case or handle this when you are taking on a client that gave a false confession, that's coming to you saying, look, they pushed me. They made me say this. This is not what I really wanted to say, but now it's on the record. And now you got that mountain to climb up as you're trying to defend someone's innocence.
It's not optimal. It's not an optimal situation. Obviously, it's one of those situations where, the first thing you're going to do if you have a confession, if your client has made a statement, is you got to look at the other evidence, right? So in this particular case, you had two guys that had made statements, and one was Michael Scott and the other was Robert Springsteen. Those were the two guys who ultimately were convicted. Okay. So these guys were actually wrongfully convicted. Maurice Pierce and this Forrest Wellborn, who were the two other kids out of the four, they never actually ended up going to trial and getting convicted. So the charges were dropped on both of them at some point. But these two guys, so initially all you have is their confessions against one another that are not consistent at all, completely inconsistent with what happened inside of that yogurt shop. So you've got that. But the difference between Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott in this case was that there was somebody that, and I don't know if you watched the documentary, but it was kind of the tattooed blonde woman. So when she had made a claim that Michael Scott had confessed to her at a party, that she had said that he had did it. And then when the cops are investigating her, turns out, she's like, oh yeah, well, he gave me all kinds of details, but I couldn't remember any of them. But they had this kind of corroborating witness here. So that Michael Scott thing was a little bit different than Springsteen, because all they had on Springsteen was Michael Scott's confession.
Yeah.
So when I have a confession thing, I'm coming in and I'm looking, what other evidence do they have? Because I assume if my client is sitting there telling me, I'm telling you, man, they bullied me into doing that thing. I honestly don't have a recollection of saying it, because they got my head that fucking twisted, by the time that thing was done. So I'm telling you, I didn't do this thing. You're just going to have to trust me on it. So if I have that as my baseline in terms of saying, okay, I've got to look at the conditions of the interrogation and I'm going to have to challenge that. But the other part of it is, because I don't think if you have a single confession and it's something of the nature I did it, that is a confession. That's something that I'm looking at and I'm saying, okay, I can overcome that, because I'm just going to say that the cops are browbeating the fuck out of my client for 18 hours straight. And, he was just saying what they needed. He thought that they needed to hear in order to let him walk out of that police station. So, but where you have the problem is where you have other powerful evidence against you, right? So that becomes a different thing. So it's like, that's really what I'm looking at. I mean, you're always going to be able to legally challenge whether or not a confession was voluntarily given, right? So I mean, you're going to be able to have the opportunity to do that as a lawyer. It's not optimal, I mean, my number one rule for my clients is shut the fuck up. You never talk to the cops. I don't care if you're innocent or guilty. You don't talk to the cops without a lawyer present, unless you're a fucking moron, unless you want to get railroaded, unless you want to give up some shit that you had no intention on giving up, or giving up something that you have no idea actually happened and they've tricked you into thinking that it did. So you just do not go into a police station or get interviewed by law enforcement without an attorney, period. End of conversation. That doesn't make you shady. It makes you smart. In this day and age, you just have to understand that everybody's got something driving them. And when you're talking about a cop or a couple of cops, their drive is to get an arrest on something and ultimately try to get a conviction on a case, especially if it's a case that they've been investigating. Because there's all kinds of crimes, like shit that they see that's going on contemporaneously. That's a completely different thing than if you're a homicide dick and you're out there investigating for years, and you're becoming obsessed with the case. So, I mean, the confession thing is the problem with it, Tony, is that by the time you get to trial, you're then left with trying to convince 12 people of that thing that I was talking about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
That people actually do make false confessions.
Yeah. And it's a simple fact, but it's trying to convince people of a fact that they're hesitant to believe. And that's the difficult thing with all this. In this case, in the yogurt shop case, I mean, we try to have a system of checks and balances that can weed things out, the judge being one of them. I mean, at some point when you have these cases in preliminary hearings and motions are going about, why did this get as far as it did, especially with one of them ending up on death row? I mean, why on earth did someone at some point not say, these two stories that they're both ratting each other out on don't make sense. They're not even talking about the same story. It's different stories. So how is this logical? How does this have any sort of weight? Is it, I mean, obviously within those jurisdictions, they're on the team too of well, we want justice for our community. Is it the narrow-mindedness of sometimes the prosecutors, the judge, the police, everybody is not operating as independently as they should, where you can have the checks and balances going on?
I mean, when you say the checks and the balances, when you're talking about the criminal justice system, the checks and the balances in that equation are defense attorneys. Yeah. We're the fucking checks and the balances.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
But within the system, if you don't want a wrongful conviction, if somebody just looks at us and goes, okay, I see your work over here and I believe you think you're on the right path, but look, this just doesn't add up. And
Yeah.
it seems nobody wants to tell anybody their work is bad.
I know. I know. And
Yeah.
it's like it's one of those things where you're sitting there thinking about it and you're like, okay, how do I tell my boss that this case is shit? Like, because I have friends that have like been prosecutors and they were just assistant state's attorneys, but they had a boss. And I've always been trying to ask these candid questions of these fucking people. I'm like, all right, so dude, like when you open a case and you open the file and you're reading through it and you realize that you have like a shit case, can you go to your boss and be like, this is like, I don't want to fucking try this case. It's a piece of shit, and from the few people that I've spoken to that have been, I feel like honest to me about how those things operate. Like they're like, no, if my boss has told me to move forward on the case, I'm moving forward on the case. And I have very little ability to stop that from happening, if any. So, you know what I mean? Like people need to understand how the politics of that office work. You have young prosecuting attorneys, sometimes 23, 24, 25, no life experience. They're going in there. If they're in the felony courtroom, and they're not kind of the head attorney in that room, then they're relatively new to trying cases and they're relatively new to being an adult and being out in the world. And, they don't have that life experience that is so invaluable for investigators and prosecutors both. Oh, yes. Yes. I was dying of thirst. Thank you.
Hey, wait a minute. How do you get a delivery like that?
Because my wife is the best. The best, baby. Yeah, sorry. Well, we do this live thing now, so it's a little more of a more casual vibe. I'm allowed to grab my coffee and drink.
Yes, you are. I ate yogurt and stuff. Just sorry, that's probably not appropriate to eat during this segment, but that's all I had.
I know.
Yogurt and stuff. You're always eating meat sticks. Let's be honest.
Meat stick.
No, today was yogurt.
Oh,
be kind.
I did not get my meat stick today, so yeah, huge deficit over here.
Wow.
If we were to look back at this, and because obviously, and I want to talk about the folks who've gone through hell on this, and obviously now they did not do it. But the rumors have continued throughout the years, and they get looked at strange ways. Oh, I wonder he got away with this. Everybody has their judgments. Obviously, it wasn't them. So what does the future hold for the surviving accused today? Do we have lawsuits in the future? I know that there is like a fund for people who have been wrongly accused in Texas. I believe it's like $80,000 a year they get. But I mean, come on, you stole all this time from these people, and now that they truly do have the right person, is there any now new legal repercussions or motions or moves that they can make for some justice here for themselves, for the them being wrongly accused and those years of their lives stolen?
It's a 1983 claim, violation of your civil rights, and there is a statute there in Texas. And honestly, I don't know what the situation is with how there's an interplay between that statute that they have and the ability to be able to bring another, like you can't double dip on it, right? So they're going to, people that understand the law down in Texas are going to have to look at it, because obviously now there's pretty definitive evidence that like these guys were factually innocent and they have been exonerated. Here's the problem with it, T, is like we're talking that this is a case that went down in 1991.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so these guys ended up not going to trial until like 1999. So but there was this cloud of first suspicion and then this cloud of guilt that followed them. So in 2009 or 2008, leading into 2009, both Scott and Springsteen got out based on the Supreme Court of the U.S. had dropped a new case, and it was a Sixth Amendment case saying that, look, you absolutely cannot convict somebody on the fact that you're using that person's confession without bringing that person into court so that the accused can confront their accuser, meaning the person who gave the co-confession. So in both of those cases, wherein the primary piece of evidence was the confession, during neither trial did they bring in the other person so that they could be confronted. So meaning Robert Springsteen was not brought into Michael Scott's trial in order to be cross-examined, and vice versa, because they were tried separately. So that was a no-no. And so ultimately what ended up happening is both of the convictions were overturned. However, to go back to your point that you were just talking about 15 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago, whenever it was, you had these prosecutors and cops that still had bought in to their theory to the extent that they had this cognitive bias that they could not get past the fact that these are the guys. Like you've seen this clip of those prosecutors. She's like, when they were both convictions were both tossed and they were remanded for a new trial, she says, originally they're trying them again. So like there's a year period. She's like, we're definitely trying these mofos again. We're convinced that these are the guys and we're moving forward. So for a year, like when we had the attorney on last night, Carlos, he's like, I prepped for that case like a fucking savage.
Yeah.
Thinking that they were going to be taking it back to trial. And then all of a sudden, technology pops its little head in, and they were able to create and pull two profiles. One at that time, there's multiple profiles now from multiple different pieces of evidence that they couldn't get because it was such a minute amount of DNA that, at the tech at that point, they couldn't develop a profile. So
sure.
At that point in as they're in 2009, the technology is advanced to where they pull profiles from both the round that was found in the drain and also in one of the vaginal swabs from Amy Ayers. And at that point, they're like, oh, okay, we got a fucking problem. Like this sample, which the sample on both the round and the vaginal swab, same dude. And that dude isn't any of these four dudes. So they're like, oh, well, he's the fifth guy. It's like,
oh, we had a fifth, another one. Yes.
Yeah. So, that's where you're at. And so ultimately they end up not recharging or retrying the cases. So like ultimately there was enough people back there being like, I don't know. It's like that. He's the fifth guy thing. I don't know that that's it. I'm starting to think that these guys didn't fucking do it. But it like the way that it was publicized in Austin, and like you said, it was pretty much kind of a local case. Like I don't know. I had never, frankly, I'm embarrassed to admit, I had never heard of it.
I didn't either. No.
Until this documentary, like, and then I start seeing them like it's one of the biggest things ever happened in Texas, which just goes to show, like I have like Texas is like an entirely different country. It's not, I don't know what the fuck's going on down there.
They wear big hats there, bigger hats than I've ever seen.
They even wore them to the thing yesterday.
Yes.
Don't mess with Texas.
Did you guys see the one guy that looked like Wilford Brimley sitting there?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was going to be inappropriate for me to bust in and
Yes,
say that. I
it
thought
would
at that
have.
point,
Like that's one of the dads. That's
I was thinking that while we were watching that last hour. I'm like, who knew Wilford Brimley was still alive?
Yeah.
Man, I love Wilford. Wilford Brimley was fucking great.
And he was like, the guy looked like he was going to eat some Quaker Oats. He was ready to go.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
He was pumped. He was pumped. It's like the unmasking of who actually did this was so profoundly it was very encouraging in so many different ways for like, but like the point that I was getting to about these guys, and then I'll wrap it up on that portion of the question, is that the shroud of guilt just followed them even though they weren't tried again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there is no normal life for these fucking guys. And like I know one of them moved to West Virginia, but like this thing comes out, right? And you're just
the trauma. I mean, even if people aren't recognizing you for it, it's part of your identity now.
Yeah.
And it's an identity that you never asked for. And you can't necessarily escape. And the amount of, and I believe that there was very well-intentioned investigators on this, and there were some that were just ignorant, that refused to not believe that their shit didn't stink.
Right.
And that there, I don't know what the repercussions are for that. I don't know that there are repercussions for that, other than we need more checks and balances within the systems themselves to say, be able to say to each other, no, you're off, and be okay with that, and be able to retool directions of where things are going before things just barrel down one way because we're all on team blue, we're all on team whatever. It's like, let's stop being teams, let's start being individual investigators, let's start figuring out what actually makes sense. This is not a team sport. These are people's lives at the end of the day.
You can't undo that crap that follows, like this cloud of was it Pigpen from Charlie Brown?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These people, when they're applying for jobs, they're trying to live their lives while this is going on. They can't. They can't even go to a convenience store and fill up their tank without people glaring at them. Their entire lives are destroyed, and it makes me question: could this happen today? Does this happen today?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are you fucking kidding?
I want to live in the bubble where this doesn't occur.
Well, it doesn't. Then you're no better than them, Stacy. Damn it.
Yeah, Stacy.
I've only proven that today. I'm no better than anybody else.
Well, listen, I mean, here is the upside to it, but it's a slippery slope, just like anything. I mean, with the power of the DNA evidence and the ability to use IgG to kind of get over this hump if somebody's not in CODIS, right? Like, because that's what was the gap filler.
Yeah.
They had a situation like here where you've got the profiles. There's a threshold for CODIS that has to be met in order for anybody. Like, the profile has to be good enough. They have to have at least 16 markers, right, in order for it to be listed in CODIS. So if you've got DNA from a crime scene, because there's two ways that they kind of like fill up CODIS. It's either somebody who's been arrested, and depending on what state you're in, they have to mandatorily give over DNA if they're convicted. And in Illinois, it's like you have to be convicted in order to be forced, unless they compel it during the trial process.
Mm-hmm.
But and then there are other states where as soon as you're arrested, they're taking a fucking swab. You're in the system, motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way that they source it is from crime scene. So when they go around and they pull up swabs. So, and then all of those are put into CODIS. And then, so in this situation where you have the ability to develop the profile, they can't really, they run them through CODIS, but they're not getting any matches on it. So then they start going to private databases, like for companies that are using private databases, and they go and they're hitting all the different labs in all the country. Just trying to say, okay, we have this profile. We want to see, if you got anything in your system that may not have met the threshold for CODIS that's a match. And then they get this hit in Kentucky, and that's how they get is it Brashers or Brashers?
I wonder the same thing. I've heard it
so fucking like fancy. To me, it's Brashers.
There's like a furniture store here called Brashers, and I don't know. But and with that being said, and obviously DNA, if you get caught doing something, your DNA is going into the system for the most part today. But there's all that evidence that sits from decades past that is just sitting in evidence lockers and sitting in filing cabinets and sitting wherever it sits. And to start getting some of that stuff introduced into the system, do you think we are on the verge of seeing, I mean, we have started to see a lot of cold cases being solved. A lot of it has to do with podcasts. A lot of it has to do with people speaking up and saying, let's take a look at this case. And then finally some movement starts happening. People start digging things. But if we, as a system, just started going, we're just going to start going through all of this and start putting it into the system, are we on the verge of starting to see a lot of cold cases being solved
absolutely
in mass than we have in the past? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I think we're 2 steps away from like straight up fucking Minority Report shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to your point, T, like, I think we're going to get so advanced in the technology that in terms of developing a profile, like my friends over at Othram can develop a profile in a day, right? Like from the most minuscule amount of DNA imaginable.
Sure.
It's ultimately going to be where it's like fucking, you're going to be able to just stick a piece of evidence into a machine and it's going to boop, develop the profile right away. Like the speed in which we're going to be able to take like if I'm in a police station and I'm a fucking cop, I'm going to look and I'm going to say, okay, here's our cold case room. And I'm going to look through every single box and I'm going to say, okay, in 9 out of the 10 of the cold cases that we have, there is a piece of evidence that appears to have something that may in fact contain some DNA on it. But we're fucking running all of them now. And then we're running it through the system and we're going to do IgG with it. And you're going to start getting hits on it. You know, I mean, like that's the thing. Like for all the old cases where there was absolutely no ability to be able to get a profile off stuff, and they were trying to compare blood and hair back in the old days. Like if you have that evidence now and you say, okay, you know, it's become so cost effective for us to do it, because that used to be the rub. It's really expensive to run the DNA and get a profile. It's like we don't have the budget to go through our 100 cold cases because we can't spend 18, 20 grand per piece of evidence to try to develop a profile on it. When it becomes so cost effective that it costs barely nothing in order to do it, and then you're running it all through, and then you're trying to. That's the thing that's fascinating about IgG. And one day I'd love for UT to get like really a DNA expert on, and we'll have an amazing conversation, because IgG is so powerful.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's so scary when it's in the hands of the wrong people in law enforcement, because nothing tells anybody anything more than our DNA does, meaning that gives up more information about us. I've been making the argument for the past couple of years that I think that we do have a privacy interest in our DNA, meaning that when they're using IgG, which is where they're finding a hit somewhere on the tree, okay, and then they're working their way backwards to see if they can work towards this person that they kind of like for it, where they have this kind of remote DNA hit. You know, you can't allow law enforcement to go in my estimation, without a warrant. They should have more. Like IgG can't be step one. Sure. You know what I'm saying? Because then it becomes a thing where surreptitiously they're going to be trying to get all of our profiles. Because if the government had their druthers, they'd tell us, all right, everybody, today is DNA day. Everybody go to your local fucking office and you're all giving us buccal swab, and like that's it. Like we're going to have a huge database. No one's getting away with shit. Fortunately, we have civil rights in this country, and they're not going to be able to do that, you know, at least at this point in time. But, you know, if you were to ask them, would you love to be able to have every human being that lived in the United States in the fucking system? They'd be like, yeah, we'd solve every crime.
Yeah.
You know, like
we have facial recognition out there. So,
well, and look,
it's not DNA, but our faces are identified in public places now. So we are inching closer.
It doesn't take everybody to get swabbed to be in the database, though, either, to triangulate things down. It's like at 90% of the population can be tracked by DNA and IgG, even if you're not in it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like we're almost there. I mean, we are. Yeah,
that's my point. That IgG part of it is really just family tree shit. You know what I'm saying? That's why I'm saying the baseline has to be, and this thing's going to get up to the Supreme Court at some point. It's such new technology. I thought that Koberger was going to be the case if he took it to trial.
Sure.
Because Ann Taylor made enough of a stink about it in terms of their use of IgG without a warrant, and that they had backdoored the system, that I thought that was going to be the case that would make it up to the Supreme Court, because we do need it ruled on. We need the highest court in the land to say, okay, look, here's the deal, bro. Like you've got to get a fucking warrant. That's your baseline. Have some probable cause in terms of some other evidence, and then come into a judge, say, all right, we want to use IgG. okay, I see that you've collected this, and this. It's sufficient. I'm giving you the warrant. Go for it. That's fair. That's fucking fair. It can't be the first step to where they're going to just jump into it and say, okay, look, the YSTR side of it, because the paternal side is, we have the same DNA as our ancestors. It mutates a little bit over time, but by and large, it's the same profile. So, in order to get to that point, I think there should be some probable cause, and you should have to come in and get a warrant. But you're right. I mean, like, ultimately, the shit's going to be infallible because both databases, like CODIS, is not massive still.
No,
it's really not.
But
in terms of our total population of whatever 350 million, it's a pittance. So, but like Stacy was saying with the facial recognition shit, I mean, we're all on the fucking grid, one way or another.
Without a doubt. No. Yeah, whether we like it or not. Yeah. Bob Motta, defense attorney, host of the podcast Defense Diaries. Check it out. And check out that interview that you just did last night with the attorney for Michael Scott, right?
It's
Defense Diaries. Yep, check it out wherever you get podcasts and YouTube Defense Diaries. Just search it and you will find it. All right, that's going to wrap up today's episode of the program. For Bob, for Stacy, for Todd, I'm Tony Bruschi. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Bruschi and the Hidden Killers podcast.